Welcome to Jackie's Craft Table. Hello, thanks for joining me today. I wanted to show you a fun technique that I used to create these two Valentine's Day cards I gave to my kids. Here are some gorgeous cardstocks that I'm using for this technique. This technique would also be great to use up some of your scrap paper. I chose these papers because they kind of mimic the candy hearts colors. I'll have all of the cardstock colors and the supplies I'm using listed on my blog. So I'm just cutting them into strips, and some are thin and some are thicker. I'm not measuring at all. I'm not even using up the whole piece of cardstock. And then I'm left with these beautiful strips of color. I have some stick-it adhesive, and I'm just going to attach that to a piece of thin copy paper. So I'm pulling off the release paper, and you pull it off in strips, which makes it a lot easier to attach this copy paper. I chose to use this thin piece of copy paper as opposed to another cardstock because I'm going to be doing some die cutting, and I was worried that my dies wouldn't cut through 2 layers of thick cardstock. I have a little bit of adhesive left over that I'm just going to cut off and use for another project. Now I can peel off the release paper and start adhering my strips of cardstock. The paper trimmer I used left kind of a rough edge on one side, so I'm making sure to put that side down so you won't see it. I don't know if a guillotine trimmer would have been better for this. I've never used one, so I don't know if it leaves kind of a rough edge on one side as well. But I'm just using what I have, and it worked out just fine. I'm trying to put down my paper strips very close to each other. This stick-it adhesive is very forgiving, so you can pull it up if you need to. Once I'm done adding all of my paper strips, I am going to go in with my bone folder and really press it into the adhesive, and then it will stick nice and strong. This was a really relaxing and fun process. I think I could have done this for hours. And here I am really pressing it into the adhesive. I really love how this turned out. It's so pretty. I highly recommend giving this technique a try. I'm using 2 Lawn Fawn dies, and I'm taping them down with a bit of micropore tape. I have a lot of paper left over that I can use for another project, but I'm just going to cut them out so that I can run them through my Sizzix Big Shot machine. I do run it back and forth a few times, just because of the typing paper that is backing it. The layer of stick-it adhesive is really actually quite thin, but it cut out just beautifully and cleanly. I'm popping out all of the bits of paper left in this lacy die cut. I'm thinking I want to try this with an Easter egg die cut because those stripes would just be perfect for that. The cardstocks I chose for my card bases are a lot darker than the heart die cuts, but I wanted to have a good contrast between them. This first cardstock I cut down to 9 by 4.5, and I scored it at 4.5, so it's a nice square card base. I'm using a little bit of dot liner to adhere my die cut heart right onto my card base. This card is a little more simple than my second card. Now I can start working on my sentiment. I'm using an embossing bag now to put down my anti-static powder. The one I had was just too difficult to open. I had to open the bottle up every time I wanted some anti-static powder on my paper. I'm really loving the easiness of this anti-static powder bag. I used some VersaFine Onyx Black ink to stamp out my sentiment. Then I poured on some clear embossing powder from Gina K, and I'm really loving this embossing powder. It will just give a little bit of shine to my sentiment. I'm going to use my paper trimmer to cut this down just a little bit, and then I'm going to cut a banner on each side of this. I use this little trick a lot where you just cut down the center and then you meet the end up to the slit. However, there's a lot to be said for just dies that will cut it out for you quickly. I'll have to invest in some sometime. This I'm going to pop up with a little bit of foam tape. I save every little piece of my foam tape because I do use it. And then I'm going to put that right in the middle of my heart. I thought a few embellishments would look cute on this. Just a few enamel dots. And then I'm going to pull out one of my very favorite tools. This is a corner chomper, and it perfectly rounds the corners. Now on to my second card. I'm using the other two die cuts that came in Lawn Fawn's outside-in stitched heart stackables. I'm cutting two more hearts right out of my largest heart. This is going to be a gatefold card. I cut this piece of cardstock down to 4 by 11, and I'm scoring it at 4, and then I score it again at 8, and what I'm left over with is 3 inches. I'm going to fold that over and smoothen it out with my bone folder. This last fold here is going to be the center panel. The heart I'll be adhering to this is going to hang off the edge, and it looks really cute. I'll show you here in a moment. So I'm adhering my first and largest heart onto the front. And then I'm going to use the die cut, and I'm going to piece that in place right in the center and run that through the Sizzix Big Shot machine. And this will be my first window for my card. I'm going to add more adhesive to my second heart and place that right through the window so that it's centered perfectly. And now I just have one more window to cut out with the smallest heart. I'll run that through my Sizzix Big Shot machine as well. And I run that through a few times just to get a good cut. This last heart I'm going to pop up with a little more foam tape. I'm just using the pieces I had from another project. They do come in handy. And then I can center that in the second heart. I'm trying to align it perfectly so that the card opens smoothly and doesn't catch. And now for the sentiment, and I'm going to put that right inside my card. I just love this new stamp set from Reverse Confetti. It's called Heart-Filled Sentiments. I'm going to create another sentiment for the outside of this card. I think I'm having a little bit too much fun with this embossing bag. It's so easy to use. But I'm going to emboss my sentiment with some white embossing powder this time. And I guess it's not really a sentiment, it's just XO. And I'm going to repeatedly stamp this across my cardstock. The Mini Misty really helps me keep it aligned along the bottom so that it will be straight. Now I can pour on my white embossing powder and melt that with my heat tool, always remembering to heat it up for a good minute. Then the process goes a lot faster. Once that's melted, I do end up cutting this down into a banner strip as well. And I didn't show that because I showed it with my first one. And then I'm just applying a little bit of dot liner to the edges. And then I'm going to adhere that right onto the front of my card panel. And that completes this card. Please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also click on the bell if you'd like to be notified when I publish a new video. And don't forget to share this video on your favorite social media. I just love how they both turned out, but this one was extra fun. To that center heart, I did add a little bit of Wink of Stella glitter pen. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you. I'll catch you again in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.